Welcome to lesson 4 of the PRINCE2 Agile series. The PRINCE2 Journey when using Agile, that's what it's all about now. And that's actually, that's something we get a lot of questions on. People are wondering, how can this be done in a PRINCE2 setup? How can you use Scrum, for instance, in a PRINCE2 setup? How does it look? Well, as you're going to see, it's not that complicated. But there are a few tips and tricks which I'm happy to share with you now. So the objectives for this session, as really easy, it's just one, is to understand how a typical PRINCE2 project journey looks like in an Agile context. Right. Now, the PRINCE2 Journey, what's that all about? Well, the PRINCE2 Journey was something that came along in the Prince 2009 manual, looks like that. And that was the first time that someone actually drew out the PRINCE2 Journey in the PRINCE2 manual. Earlier versions didn't have that, but it helped a lot. A lot of people liked that you could see the processes and who does what by when, basically, right? Drawn out in an example. And this is how it looked like, the PRINCE2 Journey from the Prince 2009 manual. So PRINCE2, not PRINCE2 Agile, but just PRINCE2. You have your 3 management layers: directing, managing, delivering. So the product board, the product manager, the team manager level, and then you see the journey, the timeline through the project with pre-project initiation stage, delivery stages, and the final delivery stage. All very good, makes sense for a lot of people. Now the question is, if you have a PRINCE2 Agile project, how does that look like? Well, a lot is the same. You have the same management layers, obviously, right? You have the product board, directing, product manager responsibilities, managing layer, and the delivery, which in an Agile project, of course, is very much team-based. So you'd really want to have some teams working in your project to be able to harness the power of Agile. The timeline is also the same. Of course, you want to start things up. You want to have an initiation stage, delivery stages, and then a final delivery stage. Good. Now, the first thing you have to think about when applying this in a PRINCE2 Agile setting, an Agile project, time box. Starting up a project, you definitely want to set a time box for it when it kicks off. A lot of things can go wrong already here, and one of them is to let it drag out, right? But when you kick off, when you say, okay, we're going to look at starting this up, you set a time box. Now, I can't tell you exactly how long it should be, because it depends. So that's the answer to that one. But I'd say a week is plenty for most projects. If you can't do it in a week, maybe you should go back and do some more homework before you start trying to start something up, right? If there are a lot of questions to be answered and you can't answer them, are you sure you're ready for this? Maybe you want to do maybe you want to do like an experiment or a pre-study or whatever, right? Maybe you want to run that as a project in itself. That's fine. But you maybe don't want to go about starting up, building the actual thing unless you have some information. The information you need to get a common picture of what you want to achieve, right? So you set the time box, and then you use the starting up a project process like it's described in the PRINCE2 manual. But of course, you have to tailor it that too. So, but you're still going to talk your roles and responsibilities, product board, product manager. Right, that's the same. As for the team level or the delivery level, team manager, you definitely want to talk about teams. What teams are we going to have working in this? Do we have an existing team that can do some work? That would be good. We don't need to spend time starting it up. Or are we going to set a new team together? Typically in a project, you would often create a new team for the project. And then you have to talk about the business case, hugely important. What value are we delivering in this project, and how can we measure it? Right? That's just as, or I would say, even more important in an Agile project, that you have a business case, as in your more traditional projects. But of course, you always want to have it. You're gonna talk about the product description as well. Yep, you may call it an epic. It may It may not follow the product description in the PRINCE2 manual. It can be in the shape of user stories, very high-level user stories, one or more. You can write sort of an epic value statement, what you're going to deliver. It's not going to take a lot of space, as in words on paper, but you do want to circle it in, like, what are we delivering here? And then you want to talk about the approach, of course. How are we going to do this? How agile are we going to be? You're going to have a look at the Agile meter, and you're going to have a look at something like the Kinevin framework that you have in the in the PRINCE2 manual, looking at what kind of environment are we in, how does it look? Is it a very complex environment, for instance? And how are we going to behave accordingly to be prepared for that? So that's your starting of a project. So basically you identify what people are going to need, get them in a room and discuss this, rich communication using your whiteboards and your post-it notes. And then at the end of the day, you're done. That's your 1 day time box, right? You make a decision, or if it took you a week, we don't know. You make a decision and then you move on with the project, right? And the next stage is the initiation stage. So directing a project, I put that within the starting of a project process. It is the formal decision at the end of that time box, and it's made by the project board that you have identified and organized as part of starting up a project. So that makes good sense. After starting a project, you have the next time box, which is the initiation stage, right? So you've set that time box for the initiation stage. How long is that going to take? And then you kick it off. Or maybe you don't. These two time boxes, they could very well be so that you finish starting up a project on a Friday, and Monday morning you begin the initiation stage. Perfect. But it could also be that you're looking at starting up a project separately, and while you're doing that or afterwards, you're then finding a time slot for this project depending on its priority relevant to other possible projects you have in your organization, and what the teams are doing, right? And then you assign it a time slot, and when you do that, you've already done starting up a project, so you're going to kick off with initiation stage when it's time for it, when you find the time slot. So like, okay, we don't have the team available right now, but you can go in January, but you can go 1st of May. That's when your project starts with the initiation stage. And then that time box kicks off, and that may be a week or 2 or maybe 4, typically not longer. You want to keep this time box shorter, relatively speaking, to maybe what you're used to. So planning in the PRINCE2 Agile project, you do planning. You will find that you should do probably less planning, at least less detailed planning in the beginning of the project than what you're used to. But instead, you're going to do more planning as you move along than what you're used to. So that's the trade-off here, right? Initiation stage, you use initiating a project, and as you see, I've drawn that covering from the project board to the project manager and the teams. You definitely want to have the teams involved here. In this case, we have team 1 and team 2. So they're there creating the project plan. The project manager is there, of course, and the project board should be there as well. They should be there to kick it off. They should be available to answer questions, and they should participate, not full time, typically, although sometimes it's not that bad an idea. If you keep it nice and short and sweet, this initiation time box. But they definitely should be available, and they should be there to make decisions. Now, the project plan in your initiation stage should build on cadence, right? That's definitely my recommendation. So you want to have stages, and you want to set them on a cadence so that, for instance, every 2 months, every 3 months, every 4 months, we have an end stage. What should the cadence be? Well, somewhere along those timelines I threw out there. 3 months is the rule of thumb recommendation from my part, but it could be that you can do better with 2 months or with 4 months. Shouldn't be much longer than that, and much shorter typically doesn't make sense either, but it all depends. Right. So you set the cadence, and you know that, okay, 3 months from now we're going to have an end stage. and then 3 months we're going to have another end stage for however many stages you see that you're having, right? Now, you're also going to release something at the end of each stage. That's the R. You're releasing something, and you're releasing it to the end user. So that's something you also have to discuss in your initiation stage, something like the configuration management strategy. How are we able to actually release stuff to the end user? You do have to worry a lot about that in an Agile project. If you're lucky, you have a setup that works in the organization and you can easily release it to users. Typically, it could be for a project it's not that easy. You have to work some stuff out. So you have to think about that in the initiation stage. But you definitely want to release something to the users. You want to have that feedback loop going. And you want to be able to measure value during your project. So that's another thing with the business case. The business case creates some benefits, some value. You definitely want to be able to measure value realization, benefit realization throughout the project so that you can adjust if it doesn't go exactly the way you thought it would. And we can be sure of one thing, it won't go exactly the way you thought it would, right? So those are the delivery stage time boxes. You got them. Then you make a decision, or the product board makes a decision. Should be a formal decision, you know. And when I say formal, I mean it should be a visible decision. So it doesn't have to be formal as such. People standing in a room making a decision. That's great. And I've shown it for the product board. The recommendation is that the whole project, the teams, they should also be able to get a say here and be committed to the project, right? So you should hear everyone, and it should be a unanimous decision to move forward this way, right? Now then, you set your stage cadence. You made the decision that this is how we want to move forward. Then also as part of the initiation stage, you want to plan the next stage. And you do that using the stage boundary process, which looks like this, and it also covers from the product board down to the delivery level. So you definitely want to have your teams involved in doing this, everybody, and then make the decision. Boom, off you go. So now you're in the delivery stage, using the processes just like in the original PRINCE2 Journey. The teams down here, they're gonna use an agile methodology to do their work. Scrum maybe. Here's one team using Scrum, as we can see. They're working in short sprints, delivering a product at the end of each sprint, a shippable product. That's great. So it could be they're using 2-week sprints here. This team 2, they're not using Scrum. They're using Kanban. They're working flow-based. And releasing when they are ready to release something. They can also plan out when they're going to release it for sure. So and you want to be able to see that, because there may be dependencies between these teams, and that's why you do the planning together in managing a stage boundary. Now, in a project, there would typically also be, or almost always be, other stuff that's not taken care of by the teams, you know. In a dream scenario, you have a self-organized end-to-end team for everything, but in the real world, in the real project world, you don't, and then you have other stuff that needs to be done. So someone in legal has to look at something, someone over in marketing has to prepare this or that for the next release, and they're not working as part of the team. So you get them to do it. So they get their individual work packages, right? Or a group of them get a work package, or you give it to a team manager in a department, and she can arrange the work from there. So you use work packages there as well. And as for the team 1 and 2, their work package is for the whole stage. That's what we've agreed with them that they're going to do within the managing stage boundary. They've taken it on themselves. It's the release planning, and then they've got their work and they've got their dependencies with the other team and whatnot to manage. Good. So we're moving along. We're releasing stuff. What about the product board, you may ask, right? If they're used to, if you're the product board and you're used to getting status reports, highlight reports, written ones, multiple pages, that's something where you might want to change your behavior. Yeah? So you might want to, instead of getting that pushed to you, you may want to go down and pull some information. You may want to get the product board down into the project. In this case, they're shown by the arrow. They're moving down into the project, and they're looking at team 1. At the end of sprint 2, they've delivered a product, which they demo, and the product board they show up to have a look, to have a look at the progress of the project, and they can have a chat with the team and with the product manager, and they can feel and know and see the progress of the project, and they're also showing up for the team 2 later on, and whenever it's is suited to do so. You can plan for these things to happen, of course, or you can invite them down. So you should plan for some of these events. I mean, to drag the product board down, that's probably what you're going to have to do. But you can also open the door for the other times if they feel like coming by. That would be a good sign if they do by themselves. Now, at the end of the delivery stage, you want to plan the next one, and you also want to finish this one up. Make sure you release whatever you've done, and that's what you're using managing stage boundary for. So the way this looks for the Scrum team here, they're doing their 2-week sprints. Actually, the last sprint is the stage boundary sprint. So they're not producing, they're not working on products, they're not coding software or whatever they're doing in this project for the last sprint. For the last sprint, it's a sprint where they working in managing stage boundary. So they're finishing up. They're making sure stuff is getting released to the user. There may be some issues to deal with there, and they are planning for the next stage. And the planning part, there's a good agile technique called big room planning, which is extremely helpful when you want to implement agile way of working, collaboration and time boxing actually for within a project. Big room planning is getting everybody in the project together in a big room. That's why it has to be big. Well, depending on the size of your project, obviously. So you get them together in a big room for length of time. 2 days is typically good. And within that time, you kick off together, and then teams plan their work. They do their release plan, basically, for the next stage. And then they also check in with the other teams, look at dependencies, look at how they can solve problems together, how we can manage risks, maybe. And the product manager would facilitate this session. And time boxing it makes really good sense. Maybe you're going to feel like, we're going to use a lot of time on that. But time boxing it means that you're working intense, you're being effective, and you'll actually use less time, because you're going to use less time planning, believe it or not, and you're going to use very much less time during the next stage, where you would have been stalled due to the other team didn't do this or that, or there's a dependency or a bottleneck, right? So big room planning. That's what we're doing. One of the things we're doing in our stage boundary sprint, right? At the end, product board makes the decision. Should we go on? Should we stop it now? Maybe we delivered all the value that was necessary. Then let's have an option to stop the project already. Well, we've done one stage, so maybe that's not the case here. So we're going on, and we're doing delivery stage after delivery stage until we have the final delivery stage, where we looks exactly the same. But at the end of the final delivery stage, of course, we have the closing a project process, which is also involves everyone in the project. Joint responsibility for this one as well. We make sure we release the final release of the project. It hits the users, and we we make sure we close it down. Now, things like retrospectives and lessons learned, we've done that all through the project, of course, right? End of every sprint probably for the Scrum teams, and on a regular cadence for the Kanban team as well. And for sure, we've done it in the stage boundary process as we've closed down stages and planned for the new ones. So it's very much business as usual here in closing a project. We've been sort of rehearsing it whenever we had a stage boundary. So it's not that much different, but some things are. And of course, the project has to be formally closed down and finished, right? And that's your PRINCE2 Agile journey, which was the whole point of this lesson. That means the lesson is finished. Let's check back with the objectives in order to see if we have covered them. And the objective was only one this time. Understand how a typical PRINCE2 project journey looks like in an Agile context. I hope very much that we've done that you have a better understanding. Otherwise, go back and look at the video 10 times more. No, seriously. I don't know if that's going to help you. But that is the high-level view and quick view of how your PRINCE2 project looks like when you're doing it Agile. Thank you very much for looking at this video. Appreciate it. Please leave your comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.